Basically a response video to Nick, Modern Mystic, and the subject is basically the free will argument. Changed a little, but it's basically the same thing. It's a matter of choice and the fact that we really don't have any. I drew the conclusion that life was predestined, decades ago. It seems so obvious to me. I guess it's never really been a question. Once I found out how the material universe works, physics, when I was in high school, you take physics, you say, geez, it's all made up of these particles, it's all made up of these forces. They're all fixed. There is no loony particles, there's nothing. It's so predictable and so guaranteed. The decomposition of atomic isotopes, all this stuff is just so predictable that they can actually make a nuclear power plant. They can make bombs, and we can fly to the moon, and we can do all this stuff because there isn't any arrhythmia in the heartbeat of the universe. Okay, it is dependable. The physical forces can be depended upon, and regardless of quantum physics and the rest of it, the bottom line is when you get to the real world, there's no evidence of any randomness or spontaneity in any of it. And so I drew the conclusion that we don't have any free will from a different direction than perhaps Nick comes to the same conclusion. My conclusion is that we don't have it because there is no physical particle in the universe to account for it. The crap in our head might look like Jell-O. It might look like a blob of goo, but we know better. We know it's an intricate circuitry. It is a printed circuit board with zillions of connections. There are billions of cells, and they are literally, just each cell's got 30 or 40 connections. It's just a huge number of interconnections. It's a hugely complex, hardwired computer. The electricity is flowing through it. The electrons are real. All these particles don't come from nowhere. Nothing happens out of nowhere. It's an incredibly complex system, but it doesn't have any randomness in it. Okay? The words coming out of my mouth now could have been predicted with enough knowledge at the moment of the Big Bang. Every molecule, every atomic particle could be followed or traced through its destiny. I am merely fulfilling the destiny of this atomic progression, this aging of the universe, and I'm fulfilling the destiny of the molecules and the atoms and the photons and the whatever, every little nuclear particle and force that I'm comprised of. This was their destiny, is to be me and to have me say these words, and then when I'm dead and when I'm gone, the particles will move on to their next destiny. So anyway, we're actually made out of the history. I could have a piece of a Tyrannosaurus right here, and Benjamin Franklin's anus right here, a cell, a molecule, an atom that was on his anus is right here on my palm. Who the hell knows? These particles do evolve. They do progress. They don't get destroyed. That's what Einstein says. There's no destruction of them. They change shape and form and create new associations and complexities, but it's the same matter. So yes, there is no free will. That's what you're saying. Okay, there's no choice. We don't choose to be anything. So if the person jumps on the grenade, they don't choose to do it. They do it because that's how they've been programmed to do. That's what their destiny was. I don't really like that you talk about it derogatorily and even make the point that a woman wouldn't be so stupid, because there is a logic to self-sacrifice, regardless of whether you accept it or not. It's something I'll certainly defend. There is a logic. If you can save two of something that is equal to yourself, if you can accept one quantity of suffering and prevent 15 of the same quantities of suffering by enduring that one quantity, logically makes sense to make that sacrifice. Okay, so I wouldn't argue that a woman wouldn't be so stupid. I would argue that it would be stupid for any human being who understood that concept not to act appropriately. that would be false self-preservation. That would be illogical behavior. So we'll move on to the rest of the argument, which is, what are these implications of the fact that we don't have this choice? I almost argue that that doesn't matter, because perceptually it feels like a choice. We see the process of the choice take place within us. We see ourselves evolve. We see ourselves philosophically evolve. We come to a realization and we go, wow, I never really looked at it that way. I didn't think of it that way. I have a new perspective because some new information has changed the programming. Okay, and we witness the change. Even though the change was inevitable, even though it was predestinable from the moment of the Big Bang, when it happens, when the realization actually takes place in ourselves, it is a real event. We are experiencing the real event of the programming changing, of our logic changing, of our understanding changing. And so we can't help but to feel like we are a part of that change, because we are experiencing the change. And the idea of feeling proud about it and the rest of it, that's just part of the natural organism, the way we are built. We are constructed to feel good about being good. It's just how the logic works. There is a thing called positive reinforcement, and we can turn that positive reinforcement to make us feel good about being good. That is one of the logical constructs. We can be programmed to feel good about being good. You could also program us to feel good about, you know, maliciously manipulating other people in a perfect way to make a fortune, and somebody could feel good about that because they say, wow, I did that so good, I outsmarted them so well, you know. They could put on their Simon Bar sinister mustache and twist it and say, ha ha ha, I got them, you know, and they will feel good about it because that is their programming. My argument would be is that we have books, we have understanding, we have knowledge, so we can take that knowledge and we can read it and we can realize that there is an illogic in being destructive to other human beings who are of equal importance to ourselves. And so we have a new mandate. The mandate won't be our own gratification. Our mandate will be efficiency, of functioning efficiently in the environment we exist in, of taking the other things that exist with us seriously. They are not brick walls, they are not rocks, they are not piles of dirt. They are feeling creatures, just as important as ourselves, and that we cannot be productive and abuse them. And how much time do I have? Oh, good, a couple of minutes. So it's really about the evolution of a philosophy, the evolution of our psychology. I am not claiming any free will. I'm not claiming that we have any real choice. But as a practical matter, it feels like choice. We feel our brain bringing the thoughts through the feedback loop. We feel ourselves positively reinforce a good idea. We feel it happen, and so we cannot help but to take credit for it happening, because we are experiencing the process of the change. We are experiencing the process of our maturation, our growth, our enlightenment.
Okay, and we cannot help but to feel good about that, because that is how we are programmed. That's how we make positive thoughts rise to the surface to become our philosophy, is by positively reinforcing them. We must feel pride, we must feel satisfaction, or we could not reinforce that logic. We could not give that logic meaning. So pride is a necessary aspect of the logical process. It is how you build the logic. That's how our brain builds the logic. That's how it gives it value. A computer might give something value by attaching a 4-bit code to it that would say good piece of info, you know. It would have some marker that would identify it as something that is more important than some other bit of information. But our brain has to use something it can identify, and what it identifies is feelings. What it identifies is emotions. So we must feel those things to create the reinforcement of the logic as it grows. So we have to think we're a participant. We have to feel good about thinking well. We have to think good about being productive. We have to feel good about doing good.
Or we're not going to do good.
that wouldn't be our logic. So any do-gooder has got to feel pride, because pride is a necessity to building the do-gooder philosophy. It's just a necessity. And like I said, if you lack it, then you will still feel pride and all these other things because you are constructed to do it. But you will feel pride in being selfish and manipulative and a piece of shit. And you only feel pride because you will say, I'm better than them. Or you'll have some other stupid reason to feel pride. You won't feel pride because you accomplished something that logically you know has real value. You will just feel pride like any animal feels pride in that, oh, I won the fight. Or, you know, I got to the food first. Or I got all the bananas and they don't have any. Or some other bullshit. And so I know underlying your philosophy is this you know, take care of yourself first ideal. And that's where your little shot at the grenade jumper comes from. And so I'll just throw my shot in also. That the son of a bitch who's acting out of self-interest is just an idiot, a moron. Okay? He hasn't become enlightened. He hasn't become logical.